Number 8, the amount of revenue collected by the government from the tariff is. Well, this is an interesting one, right? So who gets this tariff? Well, it's like a tax, right? Anything that comes through the ports and the harbors of New York or Baltimore or whatever has to pay the government this import tax. And this tax is $8. And the question is, well, how much does the government get? Well, government revenue, in this case, is going to be equal to tariff times imports. We know the imports were 36 units. We did that just in the last problem. This distance is the imports. We know the tariff is $8. That's the amount of the tariff right here. So 8 times 36 is 288. So government revenue is $288. All right? The answer is clearly B, but make sure you see it. Again, you had to figure out the imports. We know we're importing 36 units. You know the tariff pushed the price up from $20 to $28. The tariff was $8. Simply 8 times 36 gives us our government revenue. All right. The deadweight loss caused by the tariff. Just like taxes in Chapter 8, we have a deadweight loss from this tariff. It's kind of like a tax, of course, right? And the question is, what is the deadweight loss? Well, this is the lost kind of consumption from consumers caused by the tariff. All right? So it's going to cut into our surplus. So there are 2 ways to go about it, right? One is to say, all right, I know government revenues. Make sure you see that. $8 times the 36 units in the imports. So this is the government revenues. All right? And government revenue is part of our surplus. The government spends the money in us. It spends it in Baruch for public education. So we're considering government revenues part of the whole surplus to society. All right? It eventually feeds back to consumers and producers in some way. So that's not lost. But when we went from free trade all the way up to here to the tariff all the way up to here, we lost this area right here, seemingly. Producers picked up this part right here, right? Government picks up this, but this part that's lost surplus. Nobody gets it. So how do you figure that out? Well, we've got triangles. We've got data. We can figure it out. So this area right here is this. Here's the length. It's 80 minus 64. So it's going to be 1/2 times 16 times the amount of the tariff, which is 8, which is going to be equal to $64. That was lost surplus. This triangle right here is what? Well, it's 1/2. That's times this distance right here, which is 8 units, which is how much the domestic producers increase their production, times the tariff, which is 8 units, which is going to be equal to $32. So the entire deadweight loss from the tariff is going to be 32 plus 64. So deadweight is equal to $96. That's what was lost from doing this entire exercise. All right? So the answer to number 9 is C, $96, and I hope you got it. And there's another way to do it. I picked off these 2 triangles, but another way to do this exercise would have said, okay, here is consumer surplus or total surplus with trade. Total surplus with free trade is this area and this area. We said total surplus was $1,800 with free trade. Now it was total surplus after we imposed this tariff. Well, the total surplus after the tariff is consumer surplus with the tariff, 1024. Producer surplus with the tariff, which is 392, plus the government revenues, which we said was 288. So let's put 288 right here. And this is now 4, right? This is 0. This is 7. And this is 1. So now the total surplus with the tariff is 1704. Make sure you see how I got that. We've got the government revenue, it's part of the surplus after the tariff. We've got consumer surplus right here after the tariff. We've got producer surplus after the tariff. You put all those 3 together, you get 1704. If you don't get it, go back, replay this tape, and look at it again, okay? It's a very important number. So what was our surplus under free trade? This whole area right here and this little area, we said it was 1,800. Well, the difference in surplus with free trade versus trade with a tariff is this difference right here. Oops, there it is, $96. So you could compute it two ways. You could actually figure out the area of these two triangles to get the deadweight loss, or you could actually compute the difference in total surplus with free trade versus free trade and the tariff. And that would give you that number. And it's a great number. It's a great question. So lastly, when comparing no trade to free trade, the gains from trade amount to. So when you compare free trade to no trade, so we're going to go way back a little bit. So now we had free trade, and we know that surplus. That surplus with free trade is $1,800. The question is, what's the surplus with no trade? With no trade, the surplus is this area and this area, right? It's the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. So that's 60 minus 0, that's 60. And that's going to be 40 units. So consumer or total surplus, I'm going to put it right here, I'll squeeze it in. Total surplus, no trade, NT for no trade, is equal to 1/2 times 60 times 40, which is that distance right there, which is equal to 1,200. All right. So total surplus, no trade is 1,200. Total surplus with trade, 1,800. That's a difference of 600. There's your answer B, 600. And we have done 10 terrific questions all in this one diagram. You get to see how important this diagram is and understanding it, manipulating it. So if I move too fast, the beauty of this whole idea is you can replay this, replay how I got these numbers, stop it whenever you need to, but make sure you can figure out everything I did in this particular chart, because if you get comfortable with this and you understood every piece of data that we used here, you'll be in great shape on Chapter 9. All right, so we're done. I'll see you in Chapter 10 pretty soon. Bye-bye.